Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be taking a look at a game from the 2024 the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League Tournament. Now this tournament actually has already started and round 1 has already finished. So today round 2 is going to happen. So it is the Super Grandmasters versus the Grandmasters. But we're not going to be taking a look at those games because they're not finished yet. But still, we're going to be taking a look at a game from round 1. Now, before I show you guys the game, I'm going to quickly introduce this tournament for you guys. So this is the home page, and basically there are 6 teams in total that will compete in this tournament, and there are at least 3 women and 1 junior player, and also containing first of all 3 men and then 2 women, then 1 junior player. So at least. And these are the teams. The more specific details I'm not going to show it to you guys because it is not necessary. I actually had shown this in the previous 2 videos. If you are interested, you can go and check on them as well. So what is actually important about this tournament is actually the time control. So actually it is 20 minutes with no increment at all, which means that it is, even though you might hear, okay, 20 minutes, that is actually not fast, not slow, but unfortunately with no increment. Most of the times in these kinds of very high class tournament, usually there's increment, for example, 30 seconds with each move. But here there's just no increment. So actually the speed of the games are going pretty fast, which means that you don't really have any time, you cannot think for too long, especially in the opening, and because you have to preserve more time for the middle game and for the end game where calculation is needed and time is needed. So this is a very important thing that you have to know. So today we'll be taking a look at a game played in round 1. Now it was between the Triveni Continental Kings against the PBG Alaskan Knights. Okay, so this game is played between Alireza Firouzja against Anish Giri. So I think both these players are pretty known, and I think you guys at least have heard their names before. So these are two very strong grandmasters. And in this game, I'm not going to tell you guys the result yet. Some kind of drama happened in the end, in the game. At the end, at a point, Black is about to win, and then he just blundered the win and then went into a draw. But here, I'm not going to show you guys yet. First of all, let's start with the opening of this game. So Alireza is white, and he started with d4, the queen's pawn opening, knight f6, c4, e6, bishop f4, and bishop b4 check. Now this is the Indian game actually, and after knight d2, c5, d takes c5, short castle. So actually I think this opening is probably not that common, but at least I'm going to tell you guys that in these first few moves, both sides have been playing the most accurate moves. So no comments about these. e3 was played, bishop takes c3, and knight gf3. Here b6 was played, so you can see that Black is going to develop his bishop this way to gain control of this big diagonal. And here in the game, bishop d3 was played after bishop b7, queen c2. So actually in the first few moves, these are just very normal moves, development moves. You're just developing your pieces. But actually here, this line playing the game, this line that Alireza played was not a good variation because already the position is already going towards Black's side. And the main reason for that is because these 2 bishops, especially the b7 bishop, is just a way too strong piece. And actually on White's side, I think the main reason is that these minor pieces are somehow a little bit misplaced. These are not the best spots that they should have been, especially this d2 knight, because this knight is somehow a little bit passive, and Like if it were on c3, for example, it would be much more active, but unfortunately it is not. So that is why this position, black is actually slightly better here. And after queen c2, bishop e7 was played. Now actually bishop e7, I don't think it is a very necessary move. Probably Alireza thought that there was like some knight b3 ideas or a3 b4 ideas to kick this bishop, or like 94 ideas. So he thought that not Alireza, but actually Giri, like Anish Giri. He thought that this bishop needs to retreat back, or else like for white, there are some 94 ideas, which is very annoying. But actually that is not necessary here. You can just go d5. For black, you can just go d5. I mean, black has already got his king to safety while white hasn't. So it's obvious, like it is reasonable for black to start launching an attack right away in the center to open up files. And here, let's say white now castles and gets the king to safety. But now after knight c6, for example, black is just happily developing all of his pieces to very active squares. And for white, I don't think it's like that easy for white to play in this position. But in the game, Anish Giri played like very solid. So he wants to prevent any like counterplay from white's side. So he played bishop e7, which is okay, I guess. Short castles played and now knight a6. Again, I think d5 should have been played in this position. And actually, if you want to I think the knight on a6 is not at its best square. I think d6, knight b d7, knight c5 is also possible, or d6, knight c6 ideas. Like if you go d6 here, for example, this pawn structure is actually just very solid. I mean, black is controlling all of the squares in the center with the pawns, and probably going to develop the knight this way with knight c6, which is also possible. So here d6 was played, wasn't played actually, but should have been played. And in the game, instead, knight a6 was played, which is also fine. You're developing your knight this way with knight c5. But knight c5, sometimes you have to face some like b4 problems. So in the game, a3 was played, so threatening to go b4 on the next move. And after knight c5, bishop e2. So of course, you do want to preserve, or you do want to still keep the bishop pairs on the board. And now you're threatening to go b4 on the next move. Rook c8 was played, and now rook a d1. Why not go b4 immediately? Because, well, actually, this is one of the best moves, but I don't know why Alireza didn't want b4 immediately. Probably he thought that there was like some knight c4 ideas, but I guess this is just fine. I mean, or maybe he thought that he wants to first of all develop all of his pieces to the right squares and then prepare for b4, because b4 you can play this move at any time. But I think what's like even better is to get this rook to the c file and get this rook to the d file. So this rook on c1 and this rook on d1 would have been a better option. But instead Alireza placed the rook on d1, like the a rook on d1, which isn't like a really promising idea. In the game, d6 was played. Now, actually, if you're going to get more aggressive, d5 here is also possible, because you can see that now the rook is like pointing straight at the queen. So it's actually not that good for white to take, because if you take here now after bishop takes d5, the knight can actually jump to e4 or a4 on the next move. Well, not a4, because the queen is still looking at it. But let's just say if white here, for example, goes, I don't know, for example, just goes b4, for example. Now, knight ce4, even though black is not winning any material, but after queen d3, like you can see that black is like throwing all of his pieces, or like pushing all of his pieces up towards white's territory. And now, for example, like knight c3, and this position is just very hard for white to play, because this bishop is a good bishop, this knight is a good knight, and all of your pieces are just cramped in like this place. The f1 rook cannot be developed either, and this is just a better position for black. So d5 should have been played, but in the game, Anish Giri, he wanted to play more solid and instead played d6, which is also fine. And after queen b1, now Alireza, he saw that there was d5 and the queen will be in some trouble if it were still on c2. So he retreated it back and now is preparing for b4. And after knight h5, kicking this bishop, of course you don't want to like allow the exchange on f4, because then after knight takes f4, e takes f4, your pawn structures will be damaged. So, I mean, this bishop cannot like run away from this trade anymore, but it's best for it to be traded off on the g3 square. After knight takes g3, h takes g3, bishop f6, knight d4 blockading this diagonal, g6, and now after bishop f3, queen e7, finally b4. Now kicking this knight, first of all, black took on f3, and after knight f3, knight d7 back. Now this position, you can see that this is suddenly like white is having a huge space, because the main problem here is that, well, actually the main problem here for black is that he should have gone d5 still. Queen e7 is not a good move. And after d5 here, let's say if white takes, and now after e takes d5, even though this isn't like centered isolated pawn, but it is first of all being well protected, and it doesn't really face any problems. It controls the important c4 square as well as the e4 square, supports knight e4, and in this position black is just gonna be slightly better. But in the game, however, he played queen e7, which is just too solid. Like, he doesn't really have any d5 ideas, I think, in the whole game. And after b4 takes, and knight d7, now suddenly I think white is having a lot of opportunities, because two knights versus knight and bishop, I think here, especially this d4 knight, it's actually standing on a really good spot, and it can sometimes go to b5 to attack the d6 pawn as well as the a7 pawn. So it's actually really tricky now. But in the game, queen b3 was played, and knight b5 should have been played, I guess. Trading this, like, exchanging this c4 pawn for this d6 pawn. Now, we're giving this c4 pawn to black, but we're taking your d6 pawn. And after knight d6, rook c6, knight e4, for example, this position probably, like, white is not gaining any advantages yet, but still, I think white is not that hard to play with, because these two knights are really active. And now, actually, white is even threatening to take on d7 and go knight f6. So it is actually a really tricky position, but in the game, Alireza instead played queen b3, and after knight e5, offering a trade of knights, takes, bishop takes, of course, and after rook d2, rook c7. So, of course, here, I think, here white does have an opportunity to stay better, but it's not an easy move to see, and it's to go b5. If here black takes on f3, then this is just completely better for white, because white can now jump to c6. And let's say if black trades the pieces off, now there's just rook takes d4. Now this d6 pawn is just way too weak. And later on, white can start pushing pawns on the king side. And also, like, after b5, if black takes on c4, and after knight c6, rook takes, b takes, d5. In this position, even though white is up half a piece, but he will lose all of the pawns, and this position is actually like an equal position. So I guess, I mean, it's pretty complicated because the material is unequal, but still, it is an equalized position, but it's just complicated. All right, so let's go back. Knight takes c5 was played, bishop takes c5, and now rook d2, doubling up on the d file, and black says, I'm going to double up on the c file. So if white is going to attack the d pawn, then black is going to attack the c pawn. So this is black's weakness, and this is white's weakness. Knight f3 was played, and after rook c8, knight takes c5, d takes c5. Now, the main problem for white is that black has already fixed his weakness, but white's weakness is still here. But actually, white can definitely protect it with rook c1, and after h5, rook dc2. Now, white's idea is actually to threaten to go c5, like to prepare for c5. Obviously, he cannot go c5 right now, because all of black's pieces are pointing directly at the c5 square. But maybe in the future, like some rook c3, queen c2 ideas, maybe. So h4 was played after g takes, queen takes, now c5. So I think h4 shouldn't be played, because it does give white some c5 ideas. Probably black will just needs to wait, and this will just probably end in the draw. But h4 is also fine. After takes, c5, king g7, rook c4 attacking the queen. But the main problem is that now white is gaining counterplay. like he is about to activate all of his pieces. F3, rook h8, queen c3, b takes c5, b takes c5, queen h2, king f2, rook h3, rook g4. Now this is the blunder. Actually, I should have played it out a bit slower. I mean, so I want you guys to like guess what I play here, but I just show it to you guys. So rook g4 was playing the game, and it is a blunder. But now you guys can, I mean, there are countless ways to like save this position or draw this position, and you guys can actually pause this video to think as many possibilities as possible to like hold this position. So actually, I mean, here rook g1 is possible, king f1 is possible, c6 is possible, like just any waiting moves or any moves that is like not like jumping into trouble. But just this rook g4 move is a blunder. Now the main problem is that black just, kicks this rook with f5, and the rook just has to go back. But like in the game, instead of going back, he played rook h1. And after rook takes f3, this is a brilliant move played by Anish Giri. I mean, the main point is that if you take, now there's actually queen takes e5 with check, and after the king moves, for example, to h6, now after queen f4, the king goes back, white will take the rook with check, and this is just going to be winning. So, but the main problem here is that there's rook takes f3, and after, well, if you take on f3 here, which is actually the best move, there's f takes g4, and after king takes g4, there is actually just queen g2, and after king h4, king g8 here, and threatening to go rook h7 on the next move. So, but also, I mean, here it takes the best opportunity is to go king e4 to run away with the king. But after queen g2, king e5, now I take the rook, and after king d6, king f7 takes. This might look a little bit complicated, but this is just a winning position for black, because black, first of all, is up a pawn, and second of all, he just needs to push this pawn to promotion. So that is why that is what happens after king f3. But king like all moves here loses, but king e2 is even worse here. And after queen h1, queen e5 check, king f8. Now probably king h6 is slightly better because you're just getting your king to safety. If you go check, there's block, and if you go, for example, check, king h5, and white will be running out of checks. King f8 was played, but still it's winning for black. And after g takes f3, f takes g4, queen c7, g takes f3, probably taken with the queen will be like an even easier win, because after king d2, you just need to push the pawn and get your king to safety. But I don't know why like Anish Giri is playing all of these inaccuracies. I mean, he still has 7 minutes left on his clock, and he should just like slow down and think a clear winning plan. But he's just like playing all of these moves too fast, and like they're like inaccurate moves. So like in the end, making white like running away from this dead lost position. So after g takes f3, he even thought about this for about like 2 minutes, but he just played like this move. I mean, it's winning, but it's not as good as queen f3. King d2, queen g2, king c3, f2, queen d8, king f7, queen c7, king f6, queen f4, king g7, queen d4. Now this is the part where Anish where he actually blundered, well, not blundered, but made a mistake and throw the winning game away. So can you guess what he played here, or can you find out what's the best winning idea here? So in the game here, okay, I'm not going to show you guys what happened in the game first, but I'm going to show you guys what is the best winning idea here. The best winning idea here is actually just to go, here, king f7, and after queen d7, there's king f6. If you go queen d4, there's king g5, and after queen e5, king h4, the king will run to this way, and white will immediately run out of checks, and f1 will be winning. And after king f7, if white goes queen f4 check, then after actually you can also go king g8 here, and after queen b8, king g7, queen e5, you now go king h6, run away with the king to this place, to this towards the queen and it should be winning. I mean, it's a very easy idea to find, but probably in the game, Giri thought that these were just all drawing variations because white can just keep checking and checking and checking. But so that's why he played e5 in the game, and as you can just see by the eval bar, this is now a complete draw. Because now after queen e5, before it is a win because white doesn't have enough checks. But now after e5, white does have checks forever. So check, check, check. Now, even though black is still getting his king towards the queen, but the main problem here is now after, if you go down, let's say king to f3, well, there's queen d5. And let's say if you go king g3, queen e5, keep checking. The main problem here is that you no longer have the e6 pawn. So now, for example, I mean, if you had the e6 pawn, then white wouldn't be able to go to queen d5. And this will be just an easily winning position for black. But now after queen d5, king g3, queen e5, king h3, queen h8, there's just forever checks. So white will just keep checking black's king. And if you go like in the game, king g5 was played after queen e5, king h4, queen h8 check. But no matter where black goes, there's just like checks for white. And after check, and here Giri just offered 3 repetitions because you can see that he is almost about to run out of time. He only has about 36 seconds. So if he keeps playing on, he might be even facing some like he might even lose on time if he keeps playing on because it is with no increment. So if it were with increment, then probably he will still play on for a few moves, like he'll try some other variations, but because he doesn't have enough time left, so he just here offered 3 repetition, and after king g4, this is 3 times repetition, and the game ended in a draw. So Alireza actually drew this game, luckily, because if Anish Giri here didn't play e5 and instead just played anything else with the king, it will be winning. But I guess this is first of all some luck to Alireza, and also he did found the best checking moves in the rest of this game. So this game was actually like a little bit unfortunate to Giri because he is under time trouble and he blundered with e5 and thrown away the winning game. But still, he did show some good techniques in the middle game and in the opening. So yeah, both are very strong players, and when both sides didn't make any too big mistakes, like didn't blunder any materials, and in the end it is most likely gonna end in a draw. So I hope you guys enjoyed this game and learned something from this game. And when you're playing games with no increment, you should play not too fast but not too slow, and you should use your time properly. So yeah, hope you guys learned something from this game, and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!